Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gamer Guys podcast, hosted by myself, Robert Haynes, and my great friend, Terry O. Terry, how's it going today?
It's going very well. Once again, there is a time difference, but I'm feeling energetic, feeling good, and ready to start this podcast.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure the energy is pouring out of you right now at this late hour. But no, we're really excited. We are going to be recording a lot today. I've already recorded 2 episodes of Talking TSM, and I know we'll be doing 2 of these. And, you know, as we start to get this show more together, I think we got some really cool things planned for the future as well. So make sure, if you haven't already, go hit that subscribe button because we are going to do some pretty cool things coming up here with this show. That being said, we're going to talk about Overwatch again. No, I'm just kidding.
Threw me off there too.
um, no, today we're going to talk about an area of expertise for you specifically, mobile gaming. Now, I'm going to preface this real quick with the fact that, mobile gaming is easily the fastest growing portion of gaming in the world. It's really not even close. It's super easy to just pick up your phone and play a game. I've even been grinding a little bit of Wild Rift myself, trying to get myself up to plat, which has proved to be not as difficult as I thought it was going to be, but still a little more difficult. But we've got, Apex Legends coming here on mobile in a couple days. I know I will be trying that out myself. I know you've already played it. What are your thoughts overall on mobile gaming? You're somebody who has done both pretty significantly and been able to find success in both. Where are you at with it?
So I'm personally a huge supporter of mobile gaming. I know why some people aren't necessarily that into it. For me personally, I've played like Wild Rift. I got to Grandmaster, almost hit Challenger. I played Apex Legends Mobile, Pokemon Unite. I played a whole different various kinds of mobile games. And when we're talking about mobile games, we're not talking about like Clash of Clans. We're not talking about Puzzles and Dragons or any Gachapon games. We're talking about competitive team games that definitely have an esports scene. And when talking about this, the biggest news that comes up to date is the May 17th global release for Apex Legends Mobile. And as Robert has mentioned, I have tried the beta, and from what I've experienced with it, it's a phenomenal game. If any of you guys have any qualms as to whether you want to try it or not, for my personal taste, I 100% recommend you give it a shot because the game itself, mobile games, you might think it's going to be a little shallow, but Apex Legends Mobile is very much very deep. They've pretty much ported the PC version into the mobile. There are some slight tweaks, of course, because it is a different platform, but the gameplay is not shallow. And one concern that a lot of players have with any mobile game, especially because of the bad reputation that Gachapon games have given them, is the aspect of being pay to win. And for a lot of these esports, in particular, like Pokemon Unite was criticized for being pay to win, but with the specific topic of Apex Legends Mobile, I will say this off the bat. It is in no way pay to win whatsoever. It's very much free to play friendly. They give out free legends, they give out a ton of free content, and there's no barrier of entry, realistically. There's so much skill expression that just determines whether you win or not.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to be, I think, really important for mobile gaming as we kind of move on, to be honest with you. Because when I think about how, I don't know, my opinions on mobile gaming is a little different than yours. I enjoy it for what it is. What I struggle with is what would I say here? I guess I struggle with sometimes the skill expression, like you said. It always feels like it's a little than the PC or the controller version. Um, and maybe that's just totally my opinion on that. But um, and it also funny enough, this one is totally surface level and kind of dumb. But when I'm watching people play it, it looks kind of dumb. like just like when they get the stage set up and you got like, there was a picture of somebody the other day. And I'm sure this is gonna make me sound like a huge boomer, but there was this picture the other day of this guy, and they had the camera, and he was just full on spread legged, leaning back, playing the game, like and you're basically looking at his balls. And I'm like,
Yeah, I've seen that picture. That's actually for Wild Rift.
yeah, see, yeah, and I'm like, maybe the camera placement could change a little bit. Like maybe give him a desk. Like I'd seen one from a couple years ago that did have a desk, and it looked better. But like this one, it was literally like, hey, here's two couches and some cameras looking up at him, and I'm like,
that
I
was
don't know about
that was a
that.
professional setting as well. Like that's not
Yeah,
even a
yeah,
person's stream. That's straight up the professional esport where they're just starting their own little OnlyFans, you know?
yeah. And like so here's where I struggle, and this is we're gonna start a new segment today where we have we're gonna call it toxic takes, okay? And basically the premise of this is that one of us in any given show are gonna have a toxic take, and it can be at any time. Okay, we're not necessarily gonna plan it out. I planned this one out a little bit just in terms of I let Terry know, hey, I'm taking it here. And my toxic take is that I just don't think mobile gaming is going to be as big as everything else. Now, I think that there will be areas of the world that it will be, but I think in most developed countries specifically, where PCs are more readily accessible and consoles are more readily accessible, my opinion is that we are going to see a lot more, um, a lot less gaming. Like I mean, I was watching the Wild Rift EU games not too long ago. For our new friend Lewis,
Yeah.
and the viewership on that was 1,000 people. The NBA 2K league gets more than that right now, and that league is not great in terms of people watching it. So, that doesn't mean that it can't get bigger in anything. And I'm not going to be a complete boomer and tell you that mobile gaming isn't the future to a certain extent. It is, but for right now, it just doesn't feel like it's anywhere near that level of competition. I mean, and I think I would love to hear your thoughts on this too because we've seen it. Games that are mobile, like Wild Rift, does not have the attention grabbing that League of Legends has. Right, the Pokemon Unite got immensely bigger, and most of its player base, from what I have read, is actually on the Switch more so than it is on mobile. So I don't know, Terry. I mean, where are you at with that? And my potentially very toxic take.
Mobile gaming is really interesting because there's a lot of different kind of gamers. Like for example, I play on the iPad, and when it comes to playing a specific game like Wild Rift where it's more mechanically intensive, I cannot play on the phone. And I know that a lot of people don't have the opportunity to play on the iPad. So I understand why they wouldn't want to play the game itself. Like it completely does make sense. And the reason I think the Switch has more play for Pokemon Unite than mobile phones is because once again the screen size is too small. Like I've played Pokemon Unite on my phone quite a bit, and it's a simpler game than Wild Rift, so it's not as hard to play on the phone than it is with the tablet. But even then, I wouldn't say it's optimal, which is a little bit ironic considering how much I do vouch for mobile gaming. And this is also because mobile game specs vary significantly. There's a lot of phones that cannot perform these games at the optimal settings, and that does ruin the experience. And mobile phone, they heat up a lot. They'll get hot in your hands. Yes, if you're playing something like a Switch, Switches heat up as well, but you're not, unless you're playing Switch portably, of course. You're not going to be like holding on to the game console or the PC. PC would be a stronger, better example in this case. But the aspect of,
And they're made for that. Right? I
yeah,
mean, like they're made to handle that kind of heat. Like that's what they're made for. Phones are made to be phones and handle a bunch of other apps. Not necessarily gaming, right? I mean, like it is more so than it ever has been before. Obviously, I mean, we've seen even in the last 3 years just how much better phones are. But I mean, yeah, I mean to add on to your point there, I mean, yeah, the heating is, I think, it's intense. I mean, I'll play one game of Wild Rift and my phone feels like it's on
it's
fire.
so hot.
It's not even
Yeah.
an old one.
My one of my older phones, the battery life is actually demolished from playing Wild Rift on it. That was before I had the tablet. Like some phones say they can run it, but while you play, it gets so hot that it doesn't feel healthy for yourself and for the phone. Like playing on the small touchscreen, if you don't have enough optimal places to move, it's gonna affect your hands in a negative way. It doesn't affect mine when I play the tablet as much, but if I find myself playing on the phone, my carpal tunnel. Or for those of you guys who don't know, I have a carpal tunnel from playing too many video games, in particular League of Legends. But I do a lot to maintain my wrist health throughout the day. But if I'm playing on my phone, that is the harshest method of agitating my wrist that I believe just exists out of any activity that I do. So I think that does play a part of it. Like when you're playing a game, you want to be comfortable. You want to enjoy the experience. But if your phone is heating up, you're going through FPS lag, your wrist just can't handle, you can't see the screen, then obviously you're not going to want to play as much. The experience might be novel at first, which is what brings a lot of people in. For example, that's probably why so many people began Pokemon Unite, because it was free to play and literally like anyone with a smartphone could just download it and try it out. But then the more they try it out, the more their phones heat up, or the more their wrists start to hurt, the more the smaller things that aren't properly optimized for them start to bother them.
Yeah, and I mean, like, let's talk about this. I mean, I think the battery life is probably one of the biggest problems, right? I mean, it's the fact that these games. I mean, you can play a couple games. It's not like you can sit down like you can on a PC, right, and play for 12 hours. Like, I mean, you can sit down, you can play for a couple hours, and then your phone's gonna die, right?
Yeah.
And unless you have it plugged in, and if you have it plugged in, then it super starts to get hot, right? And this is not just to sit here and just crap all over mobile gaming. It is great. I think, especially in terms of casual play. Like yesterday, for example, I've been working all day, I'm grading stuff, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to play full game of League of Legends, and I want to watch. I watch baseball, so I wanted to watch the Reds play. And I knew I only had like 25 minutes between when I was going to go out to eat with my family and when I had this. So I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to play a game of Wild Rift and watch the game. Great. It's awesome. Like the casual play for it is, I don't think there's a better thing out there for casual play. Like genuinely, I think phones are as good as it gets for casual play, and I think there are certain games that work much better on phones than they do, you know, elsewhere. But my biggest thing is, Terry, is it feels like it needs to be casual, and that doesn't mean that players who play it professionally aren't good or that they do not have skill, because they genuinely do. But I think for the majority of people, right, climbing on these games and stuff, I think can be tough. And then when you look at, I guess my last part of this complete, like, I don't know, rant of destruction on mobile gaming is pricing for phones, especially like, you're gonna have a phone anyway. Sure, I get it, but like, if you want a phone that's gonna play these things optimally, right? You're still gonna be paying as much as you would for a lower end PC, or as much as you would for a console. So when people are like, "Oh, but it's cheaper," it's like, but is it? Is it really actually cheaper? Because when you take into account phone plans and the internet plans and also the fact that, like, yeah, you can play anywhere, but is the Wi-Fi or the 5G always good enough for you to do it? If you're playing on a train or something, right, you happen to go through a bad area and you lag out completely, you have no control over that, right? And so that's where, for me, it's like, if somebody tries to argue differently, I'm like, no, it's amazing for casual play, but we're talking about competitive play, and I think that's where, at least for now, there are issues with me, at least.
I agree with that sentiment. Like something that happens in a lot of mobile games is the way they're marketed is mobile games always want beginners to play, and they always try to promote that. For example, Apex Legends Mobile, the first game players play will always be against bots, but they don't tell the player that. But by being against bots, it gives them an adrenaline feeling of, oh, I'm so good. Like, I want to keep playing this game because it's easy to play, and I'm obviously very good. But the actuality is, like, that's just an illusion. Even in other games like Pokemon Unite, it's also very beginner friendly. Like they've simplified it. They took the mobile formula and made it as simple as they possibly could to be able to work, and that's why it attracts so many players. But at the same time, when you take that recipe and try to make it into a competitive game, that's when you start getting some problems with how the rank system works. For example, elo inflation, like getting to masters in Pokemon Unite, is not an accomplishment. Like in the very beginning, when you're racing against other people to get there, it used to be. But then nowadays, even really, really, really bad players can get into master rank. But then once you get into master rank, like climbing between those ladders, it feels really just not right, because the game's foundation is based off of like, oh, master rank is the best rank you can get. And like they're slowly adjusting and changing that right now. But the fact of the matter is, like, it's not accurate. You can say you're a master rank player, but it doesn't mean jack. And the same thing goes for Wild Rift. Like Wild Rift has a huge elo inflation problem right now, because they want the people that play to be able to climb, because the people are gonna play Wild Rift to climb the rank ladder. But then people with like, some screenshots exist on Twitter with like someone with like a 45% win rate in Grandmaster. The fact that that's even allowed, like the fact that all you have to do is play the game to climb, that's not good for the competitive ecosystem of the game.
Sure. And I think to add on to that, like, I mean, it feels like it's intentional for casual, right? Like
Yeah.
it is, because when you play Wild Rift, they give you protection, right? From leveling down. So you could theoretically only win 4 out of your 10 games, and it'll essentially be like you're winning closer to 50-60%, or well, 50-50, like 1 or 2% of your games, because as long as you play enough and you're not complete garbage and you're not losing all the time,
Yeah.
you're gonna have those shields of protection or whatever they call it. I forget. And you can't go down. And with Pokemon Unite, it's
Essentially the same thing.
similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, well, I mean, funny enough, both were, I believe, made by Tencent.
Tencent.
So
Yeah.
it's like
Makes
they're like,
sense.
hey, let's copy each other on this, right? And I actually think that, and I think I've said this before. I think Pokemon Unite is intentionally copying how League of Legends went, especially to start off.
Yeah.
I think they'll slow down here at some point, but and I actually went and looked, Terry. The player base for Pokemon Unite is actually still very strong. So the game itself is good, but like, and I think we should talk about like the good games here in a second. Um, but I'd love to know, like, your thoughts on this. Like, if they're gonna have those kinds of aspects in these games, right? And I'm sure Apex might have it in their ranked system too when they have it up there. I feel like they're intentionally encouraging, you know, casual play. Like, it's still competitive in the sense that you get to climb, but unless if you are just god awful, I mean, really bad at the game, it's like when I'm playing Wild Rift, people are like, "Oh, well, this is gold. Like, I'm gold," and I'm like, um, "Yeah, that doesn't matter. I got to gold in 3 days." It's like it's not hard to do that. So, like, it feels like they're making it like gold and plat instead of it being like, something that's actually, top 5 or 10% in the game like League of Legends. That now becomes more of a, well, this is where the 50, you know, plus percent sit. So I think, maybe it's just that we need to change our expectations for what the ranks actually mean, potentially even as well. Like, maybe that's more of an adjustment, because in all reality, right? Like in League of Legends, the majority of players are in silver.
Yeah.
Like that is like where the majority of people sit. I am a silver scrub myself, so I can tell you that's where most people sit. And um, I almost wonder, considering League has like 8 tiers or whatever, if only getting to the second or the third one, if they maybe they're trying to correct that in a game like Wild Rift and like Pokemon Unite, and make it so that gold is more of like the middle ground. That was gonna be my last thing on that before we kind of dive into the games themselves. I wanted to know what your thoughts were on that.
So you mentioned Apex Legends Mobile. One thing I will say about that is one thing that ruined the experience for me and made me stop playing during the beta was the fact that there were hackers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so with like because it's on the phone, it's harder for them to. I'm assuming this is why they haven't like properly corrected it. Is it's harder for them to detect it because they don't have that infrastructure made from like that cheat detection system doesn't really exist, so to say.
So
I,
maybe you're saying that like ranking wise, that's why they're not trying to fix it is because of stuff like that for right now, or
I'm not too sure, but my biggest point is Apex Legends mobile rank. Like every mobile game rank system has incredible flaws. For Wild Rift and Pokemon Unite, that would be the elo inflation. For Apex Legends Mobile, it would be the fact that they can't stop the hackers yet, and that destroys the competitive integrity of that game. And it like for those that like want to market themselves as, oh, I'm rank one, therefore I'm very good at the game, but nobody knows if you cheated, or maybe you can't pass that one cheater, and there's nothing the system does about it. When Wild Rift first came out, it was rampant with win traders as well, because in the higher elo you can control the queues, and there were so many people in the top leaderboards that were very obviously win trading, and that happened for around 6 months. It was not stopped for around 6 months. So when you talk about competitive integrity for these kind of games, that's it gets into a very interesting area because mobile games, they're very new and they're very casual friendly. But
well, it's
when
still
you
clearly in its infancy. True.
yeah,